Samir. Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. It's already Wednesday.
Yeah, it is stormy here in San Diego. It's been raining for a while, and we had some thunder and lightning.
Ooh, exciting. How
Yeah, it
appropriate
was
for the
fun.
movie that we just watched yesterday.
I know, I know.
You know
Um,
what they say in the culture, at least this is what I was told by priests around the time of my dad's funeral. We had several. Indian funerals are not just a one and done kind of thing. There's multiple things to do. Just like weddings, everything else, there's multiple days and steps. Hello, Owen. Thank you for joining today. But I remember them telling me after the last ceremony, final ceremony for my dad's funeral rites and all that, the priest came in afterwards and he's like, I just want to let everyone know that it has just started to lightly mist, lightly rain. That is a sign from the gods that what we have done today has been done to their liking, that the ancestors and the gods are pleased with how everything worked. So whenever I get that sign, if I've just done something like big or I'm really nervous, I'm like, is this going to be good? Am I going to did I do this right? Or, whenever I have that feeling and it rains after I ask that question, I feel like that's my ancestors, that's the gods saying, you're good, you did well today. So I think the gods are very happy that you watched Monsoon Wedding last night.
yeah, that was a direct relation with that. So we will be talking about actress, civil rights activist Ruby Dee for our main topic. But before that, let's talk about last night's movie. Yesterday we talked about Indian filmmaker Mira Nair, and this is her 2001 film Monsoon Wedding, which won the Golden Lion at the Venice Film Festival. I had never seen this, and yeah, in this movie, rain definitely wasn't a hindrance to them. Like, I feel like, granted, I'm assuming the rain is a lot warmer. It's not like a cold rain. But they they get all dressed up for a wedding, and then they're just like, well, it's raining, and they all just go out and dance in the rain.
Well, there's a symbolic element, I think, culturally and within the film separately for that too, because the first character that you see run out into the rain is the character who really, I think, finally by that point in the film and her story, she's been freed of a huge weight on her shoulders. And I'd almost forgotten about that storyline. I remember that this movie does have a lot of sweet and a lot of bitter in it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of dark and light in it. And I just started instantly choking up when that guy comes into the house and the look of fear and anger on her face as she sees him. And I'm like, oh my God, and I remembered everything instantly. Everything instantly came back and I just started crying. Because that moment when they finally get, like, I understand where that dad was, where it's like, this person's been in our family our whole lives. Mira Nair said that she wanted to show a contemporary India and how, certain things are changing, things are updating, cultures and traditions are more malleable in the light of, the modern social world in a way that it wasn't before. But if this had happened maybe 50 years ago, that guy would have been allowed to stay at the wedding, bless everyone. She would have had to just suck it up and watch this person. And it was so, oh my God, I was just so happy that she gave that aspect of the story like real weight. It wasn't just like a side element. But this is like what you can tell this movie was made by a woman, a contemporary woman, and somebody who's actually Indian. Like everything about India that's in the movie, it's so organically part of the world, as opposed to being popped out and highlighted to show you this is India. This is what India is like. We're going to show you the traffic. We're going to show you some colorful signs. We're going to, there's no weird montages to put you somewhere. It's kind of like I liken it to the way the first two Harry Potter movies are done and the way magic is depicted in those movies. It's very like, woo, wow, this is so, like everybody who does it every day is like amazed by it. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense because this is their life. And then you get to the third movie where all the magic things are just kind of integrated naturally into the context and the body of the film. And you don't have people being constantly amazed at something that they've probably seen done 1,000 times in their life. So there's a similar kind of energy where you get the sense like, okay, this is somebody who understands and knows where they are because they live there. So they're not trying to make a big show of everything that seems
Yeah.
Indian all the time.
Speaking of Harry Potter, I forgot to mention this yesterday. Mira Nair was actually originally supposed to direct Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix.
She was one of the choices, and I
Yeah,
really,
and she turned it down
really
for
wish
another
they had
movie.
chosen her.
Well,
Because she
it
just
sounds
has,
like she turned it down for another movie, and I forget what the movie was, but I hadn't even heard of it. I was like, I don't know. That would
I
have been
think she
exciting
didn't want to
for
work.
a Harry Potter film.
I think maybe at the time also is when she was doing that movie Queen of Katwe, and so she was getting a taste of working under a giant corporation again, and it's like something I think in her maybe sort of doesn't agree with that system and how she wants to
Yeah.
make a movie. But there's so many things in this movie like that. She has a gift with actors because a lot of the people in this movie are not actors. There are a lot of non-actors. Some of her family members are playing characters in this film. So it has this lived-in quality to it. So you're getting like this updated modern woman's version of a Bollywood movie. So you have song and dance, you have the tragedy and the comedy, which is like, Indian people are just accustomed to that. She understands the almost performative quality of Indian people, the way that they will jump into a song and a dance whenever they feel like it to express how they feel. But also just all these characters are so richly detailed. And I liked how characters like the wedding planner, I love the wedding planner of this movie, because that kind of actor with those features, Mira Nair says, in Indian acting, it's very much like these are the villains, these are the good people. There's no in between. You can tell instantly who they are. And an actor with those kind of features is usually more typically going to get a villainous role, the role of a thief, the role of somebody who's doing something really bad to somebody else. And he has these features that they will accentuate so that this is the villain. So people who have that look always get those kind of roles. And instead she gives him a romantic role. And it's such a sweet character, and the budding love that's happening there. And also this very interesting perspective on the idea of an arranged marriage. I'd love to hear what you think of that, because I liked how they did it in this movie, but I wanted to hear your perspective on that.
Well, I mean, in this case, it definitely was like, oh, cool, they actually like each other or end up liking each other, so that's convenient.
Well, he's also like an ideal kind. Like, if you're going to have an arranged marriage, you want someone who's like sensitive to the woman, who doesn't come in thinking he owns her, who wants to hear her thoughts and appreciates her honesty and reacts like a real person, a real mature man that you would hope would react in some of those ways. Like, he gets upset, but he's like, I'm so sorry. I've had my heart broken. I know what that feels like. It was just like, okay, Mr. Perfect Man, this will make the arranged marriage pill go down a little easier. But also the fact that the other guy, she has that wake up moment where he's like leaving her while she's being harassed by the police to take this phone call. And she drives off with his car and was like, fuck yes. Thank God she saw the light finally with this creep.
My dad referred to him as the ugly guy. He was like, wait, so, and then she broke things off with that ugly guy.
Well, Indian movies make it easy for you to tell who the guy you're supposed to like is and the guy you're not supposed to like is with
here he is
the
right
looks.
There. I've got my dad here, and I've got my Aunt Linda here. Hello.
Hello. Well, Linda, since you are, maybe you can become one of our screenwriters and suggest that movie for the future, because it is one I'd love to talk about and really dig into. Owen, to answer your question, as somebody, I'm half Indian. I was raised in the United States, but I was raised family is nobody wants to acknowledge that. The one who watches cooking shows and all that stuff. But to answer your question about Slumdog Millionaire, I, as somebody who is half Indian and raised in an Indian household, was not a fan. Very vociferously not a fan of that movie. I do feel like that movie is one that exoticizes and others Indian people at the same time that it's supposed to be telling you the story about their lives. I feel like the depiction of the way of life in India, in slums, is very Hollywoodized and very sanitized and not true to life in any way, or even in an artistic way. I don't feel it is. That's my perspective on it. I know some Indian people liked it. Some Indian people just like, funny story. I finally had an opportunity to talk to another Indian female filmmaker who was a little bit even, had more trouble making movies than Mira Nair. Her name is Deepa Mehta. The first time I went to Telluride Film Festival as a student, I was accepted into their symposium with 49 other students to go and take part in this festival. And in my car transport from the town of Grand Junction, where I got off the train to get into the San Juan Mountains, into the town of Telluride, one of the other people picked up was Deepa Mehta, the only other Indian female filmmaker internationally renowned for telling stories of, about lesbian love and different other aspects of Indian culture you don't normally see. So I sat in the car with her and I was like, I have to know. What do you think about Slumdog Millionaire? I can't stand it. She's like, oh, that's just Bollywood movie made for white people. Was like cut and dry. And I was like, thank God there's at least one other person that I could find that understands how I feel about this movie. Like, so very complicated. And when I watch a movie made by an Indian person like this movie that really understands the family, the Indian family and Indian people, it was like a part of my soul felt restored. I felt so like at home watching this film because I knew these people very deeply and I knew how accurately she was representing all of these situations and their lives and the things that mattered to them. So it was such a great, I loved watching it. Yes, Jim, I'm going to say I thought this was like an Indian version of Father of the Bride. There was a lot of elements of that because it's like you get the dad is like, he's a great Indian actor, very well known, classically trained, but you get that sense of like, he's trying to hold it all together. It's very overwhelming. The prospect of your precious daughter's marriage and, like there was definitely vibes of that. I don't think that it was accidental. I don't know that Mira Nair ever confirmed that that's the case with the movie, but I feel you. And I agree there's an element of that.
Yeah, overall, I really enjoyed watching this. I like this better than the only thing I can compare this to was the last Indian film that we had watched for this, which was Devdas, which is very different. I mean, they're both the only thing I think they really have in common is like they're both Indian films made around the same era, or early 2000s. Yeah, but I really, really loved all of the family dynamics in this. This certainly, it's like I've never been to an Indian wedding, and I want to go.
Well, if some lovely man ever proposes to me, we are having a gay Indian wedding. So if that happens, you're totally there. And please watch this movie. I think it's one of the great movies of the last 20 years.
I will add, we always talk crap about Slumdog Millionaire whenever possible. I also don't like it as a white person. If this was a movie that was made for, like Bollywood for white people, I never liked it. Everyone thought it was crazy. It's like, you don't like this movie? And I knew even at the time, this movie came out when I was in high school, I was watching other foreign films that it's like, okay, you want to depict these developing countries in a certain way, like they're better films that have done that. And I met Dustin Lance Black, who is the Oscar-winning screenwriter of Milk, which was up that same year as Slumdog Millionaire. And I had met him I think that next year or something at a UCLA event. I knew he was going to be there, and I was trying to get into UCLA, and I was like, we have to go, and I want to meet him. And I talked to him, and I brought up Slumdog Millionaire with him, which I'm sure he was probably like, everyone does this. But I was just like, I was getting heated. I was like, I am so mad that Slumdog Millionaire won. Milk was my favorite film of that year. And it totally should have won. I'm just so glad that at the very least you won Best Original Screenplay. Cause it was so good. And I cry every single time I watch that movie. And oh yeah. And then I felt myself like I was going to start crying. I was like, I have to get out of here. I'm not going to start crying in front of poor Dustin Lance Black and
whatever, he's doing fine. He's married to Tom Daly. They have a baby now. They're living their best lives. They get to Tom Daly teaches them how to dive, and they go to the pool in their Speedos and look beautiful together. I think that he should have at least taken 5 minutes to let you cry about his movie.
We talked to him for a few minutes, yeah, but I was just like, I'm just not gonna cry in front of him. But if you didn't see Monsoon Wedding, it's available on the Criterion Channel app, the Criterion Collection. So check it out. And also today's movie is on the Criterion app. So if you don't have it, get it.
Get it. And also the Criterion has the full DVD edition on the app for this movie. That means all of the extra features on the DVD, which includes a lot of her short films, some of her contemporary shorter films, lots and lots of material to learn all about her and see the other kinds of films that she makes as well, because she's also well known for her documentaries before she became a feature narrative filmmaker. And I think it would be really valuable if people want to see more of her work, to, if you have the app, to really dig into those. They put a lot of love and care into this edition of this movie, because I think it's a really socially important film. It's a really great viewing experience. It's emotionally sincere and honest. I think that's, so please dig in more to her. I think we should love her. Everyone should love her a little bit more, because I think she's an amazing filmmaker. But sorry, we are going to move on to today's topic at some point. Green Owen.
Look at me, I'm Ruby D. That's not that song, but that's just what I think of with Ruby D. So Ruby D came back on our radar last month when we watched A Raisin in the Sun. I had never seen her in anything except for American Gangster, which is the only thing she was ever nominated for an Academy Award. Didn't win.
Of course not.
Yeah, but she hadn't been nominated for anything else. But I had seen that, the Denzel Washington, Russell Crowe's in that movie too, right? But and it's been forever since I've seen that movie as well. But seeing her in A Raisin in the Sun, I was just like, oh, her performance is just heart-wrenching. And she had originated that role on stage, and then they brought, and I think we talked about that Sidney Poitier had originated that role as well on stage. So they basically just took this amazing theater cast and put them in the movie, and it was a really, really good movie. But Ruby D has her own illustrious career. She was born Ruby Ann Wallace, October 27th, 1922 in Cleveland, Ohio. She's an actress, poet, playwright, screenwriter. She actually co-wrote the adapted screenplay for today's film, and a huge civil rights activist during the 50s and 60s, and beyond, really. She was also part of the American Negro Theater, along with Sidney Poitier, Harry Belafonte, and Hilda Sims. She was on Broadway, eventually got into movies. I think her first film was in 1946. Her first really big role was in 1950 with the Jackie Robinson story, and that started to get her a lot of recognition with that. She's never really had a bunch of starring roles, we had noticed. We had a few choices to pick from. We were trying to pick something that was on the Criterion app, and we were really like, okay, well, which one does she have the bigger role in? She seems like she was always a supporting actress, but really just packs so much punch into these performances. She was nominated for 8 Emmys, and she actually did win at least 1 Emmy. Let's see how many she won. Paquette, only one. She won Best their supporting actress role. Outstanding supporting actress in a miniseries or a special for Decoration Day in 1990. But she was in some Spike Lee films in the early 90s. So she's someone that several generations are aware of her performances. She was in Do the Right Thing. She was in Jungle Fever. She really was acting pretty much up until she died. She died at age 91 in 2014, so a good long life. She was married twice. She took her stage name Dee from her first husband's middle name. His name was Frankie D. Brown, but she was most famously married to Ozzie Davis. another big, yeah, great career that he had. And they together had this great civil rights. They were this civil rights activist duo, and they were married from the 50s up until he died in, I think, 2005. And if you look up photos of her, like half of them are with her husband Ozzie Davis. Like even just like some cute little portraits of them together. I think they had acted together too on a few occasions. Um, yeah, but they both were well-known civil rights activists. She was a member of the Congress of Racial Equality, the NAACP, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and she had been part of she was in a sorority and she was in college, which I thought was cute.
Out of everything, hey, sisterhood is sisterhood,
Yeah, in 1999, she and Davis were arrested at one police plaza in New York City. They were protesting the police shooting of Amadou Diallo, probably messing up that name. So she's someone, she has always been super active with that. Oh, and I thought this was really sweet. When she died, says that she died peacefully, natural causes. Again, she was 91. This is what her daughter said. She very peacefully surrendered. We hugged her, we kissed her, we gave her our permission to go. She opened her eyes, she looked at us, she closed her eyes, and she set sail.
She said what?
And she set sail.
Set sail. Oh, that's a lovely way to put that.
Yeah, she is cremated, and she shares an urn with her husband's ashes. So they were in a long
genuinely in love.
Yes.
Not something you get out of Hollywood very often.
No. But really awesome lady. Really awesome, fantastic actress. She had 115 acting credits ranging from 1946 all the way up until 2013.
See, always busy, but she never really took the starring role for herself. She didn't have that desire to be like the center of attention necessarily, which is something you associate with every actor. When you're on of course, when she's actually acting, her actual performance can pull attention away from anybody because she's that good on screen. I haven't seen a lot of her TV work though. At least I can't think of it. I know that she also did narrate one of Marlon Riggs's documentaries at one point. I think it wasn't the one that was it the one that we watched? Did she narrate that one? Yeah, she narrated Color Adjustment. Yeah. Proving Marlon Riggs also knows his history as well. So it's just I like that.
My dad should know her from the Stand TV miniseries in '94. If my dad's still watching,
I remember that one. I forgot that she was in that too. She pops up in a lot of places that you're like, oh my god, she really was in so many things. And it's amazing that not more people have recognized her. Like obviously the Criterion Collection saw the value in her career, even though there's only 3 films in this little collection. It's like Ruby Dee collection. And somehow they were only able to get rights to put 3 films in there. Luckily, they got the 3, at least 2 of the best ones. One of which is what we're going to be watching for tonight. But it's I guess there weren't enough big roles in her career. So it's also true, Walter. She was also somebody who was not. She didn't mince words. She didn't pretend things were okay when they weren't. She wasn't really interested in appeasing the guilty consciences of producers or directors or anybody else just to make them feel better about the situation that Black people were living in. So I think that maybe made a lot of producers may have been like, oh, well, we don't want that kind of energy on. People say that kind of crap to justify eliminating opportunities for people just because they're outspoken. And I do think that probably was an element in why she didn't get more leading roles, but she never gave up on that career. She kept using her God-given talents and really did a lot of amazing things in and out of on and off the screen, I should say, not in and out of Hollywood, on and off the screen.
Yeah, I wonder if there's been any books written about her. I really would like to read a biography on her. And maybe we would know more about why she never really had any starring roles, always the supporting role.
When's your birthday?
November.
Wow. Maybe you should just buy it before then and read it if there is one.
Oh yeah, I mean, I haven't looked, but hopefully there is something, because I definitely would like to learn more about her. But let's talk about today's film, Uptight. So this movie, this came out in 1968. As I mentioned, she helped write the screenplay for this, as well as the director, Jules Dassin.
Jules Dawson, yes, he was a pretty well-known filmmaker in the 60s.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did a bunch of big things like Rafiki.
Oh yeah,
and Never Sunday and things like that. This movie, Black revolutionaries are betrayed by one of their own, based on the 1935 classic The Informer. So this, in a way, was kind of a remake, or at least a different adaptation, because there had been a film version of this in 1935, but and that has to do with the Irish rebellion against the English in the 1920s. So they just took that basic concept and then just adapted it to something that people in the late 60s would relate to more, and made it about Black struggles.
And neither of us have seen this movie before.
Nope.
We also have not seen the film that it's based on. Nope. So this will be a new experience for both of us.
Juanita Moore is also in this.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
this has
yeah.
Raymond St. Jacques, Ruby Dee, Frank Silvera, Roscoe Lee Brown, Janet McLaughlin, Max Julian, Juanita Moore, Dick Anthony Williams, and many more people. Yeah, this just, again, we were just trying to pick with things that were available on Criterion, and given the choices, this one stood out to us a lot. I mean, look at this poster too.
I know this is a really, really like graphic image.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack just in this poster, so it makes me even more curious to see the film. I totally forgot again that Juanita Moore was in this movie, because she's another actress whose career should have been a lot bigger than it was, and wasn't because she was considered an agitator. It was literally just who knows what the real reasons were. She was amazing. So I just love that she's in this movie too. So it'll be really great to see her in another role, because I've only ever really seen Juanita Moore in Imitation of Life, which she, one of the great screen performances she gives in that movie. So see her in another context will be really fascinating. So it just adds another element of interest to this movie. Ruby Dee's role in this movie is a supporting role, so she does not have the most screen time. But apparently this is one of her most powerful performances. So even with the limited screen time of a supporting role, she really is felt. I think her presence is felt throughout in a way. But we'll find out how much so when we watch it.
Yeah, and if you want to see other Ruby Dee films, we certainly recommend Raisin in the Sun, which we talked about last month. She was just, I mean, that was the reason why afterwards we're like, we have to do a talk just on her. Like, she was just so good in that. And that whole movie was great. That was one that Walter had suggested for our Patreon pick. This movie, Uptight, is available on the Criterion app, as was yesterday's film, as is tomorrow's film, although tomorrow's film is also available on one other thing. But if you haven't got it now, now's the month.
Now's the month. It is a great investment.
Yeah, if you enjoy,
we are not paid to say that. We just believe it.
Watching films, you've got to get the Criterion Collection app. It's really, really wonderful resource. Yeah, and I don't know if you'll be able to find this film in other places.
Elsewhere.
Yeah.
And hello, Crystal. Thanks for joining.
Yes. Hello, Crystal. Yeah, so please check this out this evening. We will be discussing it tomorrow. And yeah, thank you, Luke. Tomorrow is our first genre Thursday of the month. We are focusing on fantasy films, and Samir's super excited to talk about tomorrow. So, and I'm excited too, but especially Samir. Tomorrow we'll be talking about John Cocteau's Beauty and the Beast.
Or La Belle et la Bête.
Yeah, it's not the Disney version. It's very different.
Very different and beautiful
yeah,
and weird.
Criterion collection film. It's on there. It's tomorrow's film is also on Canopy. We've mentioned Canopy before. That's Canopy with a K. That's something you could sign up for through a participating public library. So you could, that has a huge library as well. Like most streaming things, they're always adding things and taking things off. But yeah, see if your library qualifies for Canopy. My library didn't, so I signed up for a different one. And I was able to do it online.
So that's another free way to watch it if you don't have Criterion. If you don't have Criterion yet, we still say get it because it is an amazing resource if you love films. But I do think that this movie is this particular one for tomorrow's movie. I think it's also on HBO Max, but we'll confirm before we do the show tomorrow.
But for tonight, I'm pretty sure you could only watch this movie. Maybe you could rent it somewhere, but just go ahead and get Criterion because, again, we have several other films this month that are going to be exclusively on that streaming service. Thank you guys for watching today. Please check out our Patreon if you were so inclined to do so. We don't get paid to do this. We've been doing this for almost a year. Which is insane. Yeah, and we're planning on doing this at least through April. Just pending on life things for both of us.
Yes, and who knows the state of the world at that. That will be at that point. I'm sure in some states it will be getting a lot better. In other states where they're making some really boneheaded decisions, it will probably be not as great in those areas, but we'll see how the world turns at the end of April.
We're doing the show at least through April, and we really appreciate the support from our Patreon. So I put the link over here in the comments. Please watch Uptight tonight. Again, available on the Criterion app. Join us tomorrow for our discussion of it. Moving on to John Cocteau's La Belle et la Bête.